Thanks, Q. It's quite an introduction. We go back a long ways, and I've got a few stories about you, but I'll save those for later, okay?
I gave him a 20. He's not going to tell.
That smell of success quote comes from my father, who I grew up on a hog farm with him. Those of you that know a hog farm. One time I complained about that smell, and he said, "Stop, that is the smell of success." It is so true. So, first of all, I appreciate you, the opportunity to visit with all of you today. It means a lot to me. And as many of you know, my name is Dave Welter, and I've been a teacher, coach, principal here in Cedar Falls. But many of you may know me as a driver for Western Home Communities. And I just love the opportunity to sit and visit with you when we take our trips, wherever that may be. It really means a lot to me, and it's been an important part of my life since retiring from education. Full disclosure though, as I thought about what to share today, I need you to remember that I've been hit in the head twice with a baseball. My oldest son, John, always introduces me as, "This is my dad. He's got 2 dents in his head." And I remember waking up in the hospital after that first injury, seeing a newspaper article, and the headline in it read, "Cedar Falls baseball coach beamed, X-rays show nothing." That has been hard to live down over the years. So bear with me this morning as I share some thoughts. First of all, my focus this morning is going to be on stories and the loving presence those stories have been in my life and how they powerfully impacted me throughout the years. And you know, we all have stories to tell, no question about that. Telling stories really is as basic to human beings as eating. More so, in fact, because while food makes us live, stories are what lives are worth in living. To be a person truly is to have a story to tell. Some of you may be aware that I've been on a cancer journey since I was diagnosed on my 55th birthday back in 2009. It was quite a birthday present. It's been a journey, many ups and downs, and since that time, I've focused on renewing my mind almost daily when seeking healing, whether that be physical, emotional, or spiritual healing. I carry with me in my heart each day a special verse from Proverbs to remind me of the importance of renewing my mind with positive thoughts each and every day as I face the challenges that come with a cancer journey. That verse is this: "A happy heart is good medicine, and a cheerful mind works healing, but a broken spirit dries up the bones." I've experienced both sides of that in my heart since I began my journey back in 2009. I've also seen both sides in many of the people that I've come across during that time. And for me, a happy heart and a cheerful mind is something that I have to work at when the pains and struggles that accompany this journey challenge me. Our hearts and minds truly are intimately connected. And it's impossible to have a happy heart when your mind is full of negative thoughts. Left to itself, our minds can become the devil's workshop. They pull us away from the joy and happiness that we can experience even in our difficult times. That's when we need to speak and seek help in replacing those negative thoughts with the help of family, friends, and yes, most importantly, with God and His promise of His unfailing love for each of us. You know, I think back often to the many strangers that I met during my treatments in Iowa City. Many of us were facing similar challenges, and I so enjoyed the unscripted conversations that I had with many of those strangers. It's amazing what you can come up with in a conversation while sitting in a room waiting for treatments. I was often unsure of how to start many of those conversations, but in each case, I set aside my fear and began an unscripted conversation. In this unexpected moment, God often provided the opportunity for both of us to discuss with each other how a positive attitude and a joyful heart could help us overcome the difficult situations we were facing. Given that thought, I want to focus this morning on how stories can impact our life. Aside from my family and faith, 3 things have played a major role in my life. Those being education, coaching, and of course, baseball. I want you to know I've been very blessed in my educational career, knowing both the frustration and as well as the satisfaction of working with young people. Sometimes all we need is an inspirational boost to remember the love and passion that ultimately motivate us all. One of the best ways to remind each other of the value of what we do is through the telling of stories, inspiring stories. So please allow me the opportunity to share a few of my stories from my journey with you this morning. The first one I'm going to start with is a story of PJ. You know, as a building principal, I've observed over the years that we can often see cathedrals being built in each of the little pile of rocks that sit before us each day in our classrooms. We can so often visualize the many possibilities that could be with each student. As we work with our students, many times there are no right answers, no way of knowing whether the choices we make are right or wrong. Our students depend on us, not only to guide them along the rocky path, but also to show them how to build their own cathedral from the rocks that may get strewn in their way. They need our help as builders. They need our guidance and instruction, our intervention, and our understanding. PJ was one such young man. He was in 9th grade, my first year at Holmes Junior High. He stopped by my office one day just prior to the first bell, and he had the most serious look on his face you could imagine. He said to me, "I just want you to know, Mr. Welter, I don't have my homework today." And I replied, "Well, PJ, you've been missing quite a bit of your homework here lately," using my best principal voice. And he said, "I know, I can't help it." So I said, "PJ, what's the problem?" And he was hesitant to respond. Finally, he said, "I spent the night in the bathtub." I was confused. "Why would you need to take a bath all night?" I said. And I felt kind of silly after I said that. He said, "I wasn't taking a bath, Mr. Welter. I was hiding. My mom says that if some shooting starts tonight, it's the safest place to be. She made me stay there all night." You see, PJ's dad was dealing, and that night's visitors were a dangerous bunch. Right here in Cedar Falls. I was stunned as I knew he came from a tough background, but I never suspected he'd have to hide in a bathtub for safety. I didn't know what to say. I told him to turn in his homework as soon as things settled down, and offered to help him in any way that I could. You know, the world our students often live in is one we can't even imagine. We make assumptions about them and requirements of them that might be impossible for them to accomplish through no fault of their own. Their road is made of very sharp stones, and we often have no shoes to offer them for protection. PJ and I headed off. He made it through school despite those bumps in the road, and I ran into him at a local restaurant a few years later. He was working, planning to attend Hawkeye Community College in the fall. He wanted to make sure I thanked his teachers at Holmes for caring. He found a way to tread on his path, which was covered with sharp stones. Sometimes the things we see as obstacles, as rocks in our path, such as a cancer diagnosis, are really opportunities, treasures in disguise. There is no easy path to success, no one right way to stack the stones. It's the journey that truly makes the difference. And I'm sure that as we talk about each of our journeys, we're going to discover that we all have had some rocks or stones in each of our paths over the years. A second story I'd like to share today is one about my dad. And Dad often told me, you know, Dave, you're not as strong as you might think you are. And those words truly came true many times through the cancer journey. The story that I'm going to share talks about my dad's time as a Marine at the end of World War II and as he served in the Korean conflict. And this story has some great lessons for me. After listening to a few minutes of depressing news this past couple of weeks, I needed a little bit of soul nourishment. Let's be honest, sometimes people hurt us. We get put down, run down, trampled on. As a principal, I dealt with many of those situations with young people. And it becomes easy to want to get revenge. And it's even easier to become bitter. And if we're not careful, this disease of bitterness will creep into our hearts and ruin our lives. The following quote has sometimes been attributed to Mark Twain, but many other people have used it as well. It reads, "The more I get to know the human race, the more I love my dog." You know, dogs are loyal. I've had a lot of them over the years. They're dependable, they're eager to please, and they're quick to forgive and forget. Don't you wish people were more like that? But sometimes, no matter how hard we try to have a good relationship with someone, it just doesn't work. My dad was a Marine veteran who served in World War II in Korea. And he once shared a story with me from his service in Korea that reflects this concept. During the war, his unit had hired a local boy to cook and clean for them in the barracks. These guys soon took advantage of the boy's seeming naivety. They'd smear Vaseline on the stove handle so that when he turned the stove on in the morning, he'd get grease all over his fingers. They'd put water buckets over the door so he'd get soaked when he opened the door. They'd even nail his shoes to the floor during the night. Day after day, the young Korean took the brunt of their practical jokes without saying anything. There was no blame, no self-pity, no temper tantrums. Finally, the men felt guilty about what they were doing. So they sat down with the boy and said, "Look, we know these pranks aren't funny for you, and we're very sorry. We're never going to take advantage of you again." It seemed too good to be true to the houseboy. "No more sticky on stove?" he asked. "No." "No more water on door?" "No." "No more nail shoes to floor?" "No, never again." "Okay," the boy said with a smile. "No more spit in soup." Hey, you know what? People are going to hurt us. And when people hurt us, we can respond one of two ways. Get better or get better. Jesus told us to pray for our enemies. Why? Because it's hard to hate somebody and be nasty towards somebody if you're praying for them. And Jesus never said, pray about your enemies. If I pray about my enemies, I'll probably end up complaining about them. Or worse, I'll pray for God to destroy them. But Jesus said, pray for your enemies. It's very hard to pray for people who you might dislike. Very hard. But it's even harder to pray for someone you don't like and then turn around and spit in their soup. Working on forgiveness will help you feel better and not bitter. And again, it's hard, but we can do it. We do need God, and we need the community of believers to be spiritually and emotionally healthy. Yet pride often tells us that we're able to handle the situation. Fear tells us that everything revealing the needs of our heart will only make things worse. And we often try to ignore or bury those toxins of relational hurt, misunderstandings, accusations, and fear. We sometimes seal those emotional and spiritual poisons, hoping that it will somehow be okay. But the toxins in our heart have not been removed, only compartmentalized. The pain continues to grow slowly and inexorably. Finally, the pressure builds to the point of explosion. But you know, there is a better way. Paul described that better way to the Colossians. Since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, you must clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. And let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. For as members of one body, you are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Such good words in today's divided world. You know, weakness really isn't a sin. Failing to acknowledge our need for God's strength is sin. We are frail, and we are fearfully and wonderfully made. No, we're not as strong as we think we are, as my dad used to say. And we need to acknowledge that he is God, and we are not. Jesus will help us hold in our fear and anxiety, and we need to leave our pride at the foot of the cross and depend on his grace and strength. And we need not kid ourselves about this simple truth. We are not as strong as we think we are. We need Jesus, and we need each other. With all that said, and with so much left to do, I encourage all of us to do our best to see every move we make as continual and constant opportunity to develop and grow. And if we can learn to cherish the minor moves when we face life's major moves, we can see them and embrace them as a gift, a privilege, and a blessing. My motto has always been, as a teacher, coach, and administrator, be ready, because you may be the difference in someone's life at any moment of the day. Just as I've always tried my best to serve my students, my athletes, and their families by being ready, I want to share a third story this morning, which illustrates how the relationships we build can also help us when we face our own difficult challenges. Since I was diagnosed with stage 3 throat cancer back in 2009, I've been journaling about my cancer journey and sharing it with those who have been a part of my supportive home team. It's not been an easy journey, but what I want to share with you is that the journey was made more bearable with the love and support of my home team has provided along the way. That home team includes family, friends, students, athletes, co-workers, and all are a very special part of my story. If there's one thing I've learned on my cancer journey, it's that sometimes we tend to want to deal with life's challenges on our own instead of staying in touch with those whom we love, as well as by remembering that God designed us to live close to him so that by trusting him we can feel peaceful and complete. As a cancer survivor, I've also discovered that being an encourager in someone else's life and sharing time with others is a wonderful gift. It says, "Here I am for you to listen, to care, and to serve." The power of presence should never be underestimated. What I found interesting along the way is that comfort and support can come from complete strangers, as well as from those close to us. I write about many of those experiences in my book series. And another story I'll share with you here is the story of little Taylor. I was in Iowa City beginning treatments, and I was about 7 weeks in and feeling pretty miserable after chemo and radiation treatments 5 days a week. So I'm sitting in the pharmacy waiting to pick up a prescription. And in bounces a little 7-year-old boy and his mother. And he's got a red ball he's flipping in the air. And of course, that caught my attention right away. And as I was sitting there, kind of feeling pretty down, his mom and Taylor sat right beside me. So we struck up a conversation. He was wearing a beat-up old Cardinals hat. And I started talking. I said, "So you really like the Cardinals?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I actually scout for the Atlanta Braves," and his eyes widened out. And I said, "You like baseball?" He said, "Yeah." "You want to play a game of catch?" Here we are in the pharmacy. I said, "Sure, let's play a game of toss." So we started flipping the red ball back and forth. And out of the blue, little Taylor goes, "Mister, when are they going to let you go back outside and play?" And that hit me so hard because I was feeling so down. And little Taylor, after talking to his mom, was battling leukemia. And he was the brightest, most energetic little guy, even in the midst of that battle. And I said, "You know, I'm not sure when they're going to let me go back out and play, but I think it's pretty soon. How about you?" And he said, "Yeah, I think, Mom, how about it?" And she said, "About 2 weeks left in treatments. And it's the journey after." But what I told him is, you've got to keep playing baseball. And when you get to be 16, I'm going to invite you to a Braves tryout camp so that we can work together and see how well you progressed in your game. And I said, "By the way, I have some Braves hats out in my pickup. Would you like one?" I said, "I know you're a Cardinals fan." He goes, "Oh, yeah." So we went out to the truck. I got in that Braves hat. And we've stayed in touch over the years. And lo and behold, 16 came around. I invited him to that tryout camp. And guess what hat he was wearing? The Braves hat. All right. So we developed not only a fan, but a personal friend for my life. He's doing very well. But little Taylor made me realize the importance of getting back out to play. Living in the present. Enjoying life as a gift. And not living in the past or worrying about the future over which we really have no control. Taylor provided me comfort and the hope of a plan for my future, just as God provides each of us comfort and a plan for our futures. Jeremiah 29:11 kind of says it to me. "I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Another story from Iowa City. Sitting in Iowa City, a young mother and an inmate were sitting on either side of me while I was waiting to go in for chemotherapy, which is a long treatment. It usually lasts about 6 hours a day. But as I'm sitting there, I had the young mother on my right and the inmate in a wheelchair in his jumpsuit, shackled feet, sitting to my left. The mother sitting in her wheelchair had just recently had both of her legs amputated from cancer. She had 2 of her children sitting on her lap and her husband standing behind her at the wheelchair. Struck up a conversation and I asked her her story. And she was so joyful and jubilant, having just lost 2 legs to amputation. And I had to ask her, I said, "How can you be so happy and joyful having lost both your legs?" And she said, "Look around me. I have 2 beautiful children. I have a loving husband. And I have a Father in heaven who completely cares about me." And I said, "It's amazing. You inspire me. Given what I'm going through is nothing compared to what you've gone through." So I turned to my left to the inmate who had a deputy sheriff standing next to him. He was waiting for treatments too. He said, "I never had anybody like that, anybody that cared about me." And I said, "Oh, there's somebody that cares about you." I said, "You just have to open the book." And he said, "If you're talking about the Bible thing, I'm not into the Bible." And I said, you don't have to be. You just need to know someone loves and cares for you. And he said, I've been listening. I heard you're a principal. I said, yeah, I am. He said, would you do me a favor when you get back to your school? I said, if I can, I'll certainly do that. What would you like me to do? He said, every chance you get, tell every one of your students not to do the stupid that I've done in my life over the years that got me here. He said, I have terminal liver cancer from all the alcohol and drugs I've done over the years. And I'm on my last road here. I said, well, I'm going to say a prayer for you, and I'll do every opportunity I get. I'll share your story with my students so they can avoid that. And as he got wheeled into his treatment center, his deputy walked by me and winked, and he said, I'll get him a copy of the book. And I'm hoping he did. That was quite a story between both of us. But both the young mother and the inmate helped me realize the importance of God and family and friends as important resources to reach out for guidance, support, and comfort when challenges come our way. In essence, our very own personal home teams. The young mother taught me to fix my eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, because that is eternal. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 17 and 18. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. The last story I want to share is one that really touched my heart as a grandpa. And as I share this story, please reflect on the verse at the bottom of the slide here. December and January always seems to be busy months for me in my medical follow-ups. I've had several appointments in Iowa City this past winter to check my current labs, and with winter approaching, there'll be more coming up. I'm happy to report things appear to be in the normal ranges. Been battling a little bit of upper respiratory stuff and swallowing, but gotta be careful of that, which I am. The ongoing checks are important and provide me with what I refer to as momentary interruptions in my daily life. Easy as it may be to allow those interruptions to cloud my thankfulness for the gift of life, I need to remind myself, let them go. I'm not talking about just the physical things. I'm also talking about the emotional baggage that comes with interruptions. I can tell when it's time to let something go, that being when it's time feeling very heavy, whether that be frustration with a health issue, work issue, or any other challenge that may come our way. It feels good to let them go. I can create space in my life for new things to come in. I witnessed an example of that in Iowa City this past December. I was sitting at the U of I hospitals waiting for some tests. A gentleman about my age was sitting with his children and one of his grandchildren. He was really struggling with his emotions as he was discussing and trying to explain how he felt about his recent cancer diagnosis with his family who was with him. As he began to tear up, his granddaughter, about 7 years old, I guess, crawled up on his lap to comfort him. At first, he seemed annoyed by the interruption as he shared his thoughts with his family. As she sat on his lap, I couldn't help but notice several bruises on her arms, scratches, and a matted Band-Aid on one of her arms, all of which pretty normal for a healthy 7-year-old's life. As the granddaughter settled in and snuggled with her pops, that interruption became an illustration of the love, care, and affection she had for her grandpa. In turn, her grandpa gave her a hug and acknowledged that they were both a bit bruised and broken, and that they could snuggle together to help comfort and heal each other. As I witnessed that interaction in the Iowa City Hospital's waiting room, peace, joy, confidence, and hope, faith, and love all erupted at once in my heart. That experience illustrated, through an interruption, what I feel we all seek at times of difficulty and challenge: a loving presence. Our lives are full of interruptions: traffic, sick child, long line, needy neighbor, complaining customer, co-worker in crisis, illness and death. These all look, sound, and feel like interruptions. However, each of us has the ability to look beyond life's interruptions and instead see illustrations of God's love as well as the love of others in our lives. Interruptions can be appointments for compassion, as life at times feels unfair. But in our everyday routines, we need to recognize that interruptions represent people to love and also create opportunities for us to be loved. We each need to allow these interruptions to slow us down a bit so we can better focus on receiving and giving love from God and others in our lives. Just as a young 7-year-old settled in her grandpa's lap in Iowa City, we can lean into God and learn of his love for the person or challenge that may be the interruptions in our life. By settling into the lap of our Lord and those on our personal home teams who care about us, we can rest securely in their comfort and compassion. As we deal with frustrations in explaining how we feel about the challenges our life may present, John 13:7 provides me some guidance. And I've often said this and believe this: you don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will. I look forward to that time in heaven when I may learn some of the reasons for those challenges that have come my way. May each of our life's journeys be filled with such a loving presence as we navigate the challenges that each day presents. To close, as many of you know, the story of my cancer journey and its experiences are shared in a book series called Reflections from the Home Team. I feel that the very things that have often troubled me most on my journey, my personal weaknesses and wounds, can be used in helping others. By allowing these humble, hurting parts of me to be exposed in story form, I'm hopeful they can help others by letting God's light and guidance enter their lives through my experiences. By receiving God's healing, loving, and guiding presence during those times, and wounding in my life, and in turn revealing them to others, we can help comfort and strengthen those who may be experiencing similar struggles. God's strength truly comes to us in our weaknesses. The two perfectly fit together. We all need encouragement. There's often only a thin line between hope and despair. And I know that some of the seasons of life are difficult, and some days you just hope to survive. But I think that the majority of us would admit that we can find something to be grateful for. For even in moments of frustration, gratitude seems to be a stabilizer in my life's walk. Accepting with thankfulness the bad and sorrowful takes faith and trust in God that He is faithful with us. One of the lessons that I've taken to heart over the years is that attitude is everything. I've preached that to my teams over and over, and I've incorporated it as best I can into my life as well. Basically, it is live simply, love generously, care deeply, and speak kindly. Be grateful. I recently had a good friend who was being treated for cancer, who shared a story with me as she lost her hair due to chemo treatments, something many of us go through while being treated. Her simple story stimulated so many thoughts for me about the importance of attitude when we deal with life's battles. It read, "There once was a woman who woke up one morning, looked in the mirror, and noticed she only had 3 hairs in her head. Well, she said, I'll braid my hair today. So she did, and she had a wonderful day. The next day she woke up, looked in the mirror, and saw that she had only 2 hairs on her head. She said, I think I'll part my hair down the middle today. So she did, and she had a grand day. The next day she woke up, looked in the mirror, and noticed that she had only 1 hair on her head. Well, she said, today I'm going to wear my hair in a ponytail. So she did, and she had a fun day. The next day she woke up, looked in the mirror, and noticed there wasn't a single hair on her head. Hey, she exclaimed, I don't have to fix my hair today. So, attitude truly is everything. Be kinder than necessary, because everyone that we meet is fighting some kind of battle. My friend was a woman who understood the power of good attitude. Her attitude, her confession, and her choice to make the best out of each day, despite her circumstance, allowed her to see her life positively. And I don't know what circumstances you may be facing today, if any, but I want you to know that I found that a new beginning awaits us each and every morning when we awaken, and that God allows us each to play a vital role in that new beginning. Our attitude, our confessions, and our choices will greatly affect our lives, not only today, but in every day moving forward. So as we continue our personal life's journey in 2024, enjoy sharing your stories, having fun with friends, encouraging each other while living in the present. Almost all of us will experience some kind of adversity, and most of us will go through some pretty tough times at some point in our lives. Sharing our stories can be very healing, as we all have something to share with others. Words do have power, positive power on others, especially for those who may be struggling to overcome challenges, difficult times. Remember, your story hasn't been written yet. The final chapter is yet to happen. I'll close with my favorite verse from Romans. We who are strong ought to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Each of us should please our neighbors for their good, to build them up. I'll be praying that for each of us, it will be a year filled with many loving presences of your own, building up others with your encouragement. And I thank you so much for your kind attention this morning. In Christ's love and comfort. Amen.